Hello there. Hi, everyone. My name is Idowu Akinde, and everyone calls me ID. So, continuing our series on startup building, call it the Dear Startup Founder series, we'd like to talk now and writing on the previous episode, market segmentation, customer segmentation. We'll now write on that and discuss personas, customer personas. Let's quickly take a look at what that looks like. And there you go. So what's a persona, right? I'm sure some of you might have come across this word, this term, and you wonder, what does it mean? I've had that question asked many, many times by people who have actually gone far enough in the accelerator programs within which I met them to warrant me wondering how come they don't even know what a persona means. Okay, so what's a persona? I like to say that a persona is just a description of one particular person that is a good enough representation of a segment of your market. So we discussed segmentation in the previous episode. If you haven't seen it, please check that out. And the persona is a full-blown description of that single individual that you had in mind when you were describing the segments. So earlier on, we had 3 segments, 0 to 9, 11 to 19, 20 plus. If I were to create personas from there, then I would probably find 0 to 9. I'll create a persona for a 5-year-old. I could choose any gender randomly, male or female, and then build up that, look for the trick that I usually use is that I find a human being in my vicinity that matches that initial description. So I'm going to look for a 5-year-old in my vicinity, and I'm just going to change that person's name, anonymize the person, and just use that person as a description. For me, if the person matches the persona, it's perfect for me, and it helps to really, really concretize and solidify the way you think about the product decisions that you make. So many times you may get too abstract in the way you think about a persona. But if that persona, at least to you, the initial product designer, right, before you hand it over to other people in your team, if that persona is tied or anchored with a human being that it's just more real. It's just more, whenever you see that persona, we are flipping through or you're doing something else and you see that persona, when you see it, something jumps out and you know that there is a human being that I used to model this persona, and it's really, really a great technique to make the persona description really, really strong. This doesn't mean that you should, as much as possible, try and protect people's privacy. So there are 2 types of personas. The word persona comes from 2 contexts. One is, I'll use the lower version first, the marketing one. The standard definition, the standard traditional olden days definition of persona comes from marketing, where like we described in the example, in the previous example, in the last episode of market segmentation, the marketing persona is the full-blown description of the habits, behaviors, demography, and psychography of each of those segments if they were to be represented by a human being. So remember that in school, we are taught about the measures of central tendency, right? So if you have a group of a range of numbers, right, and you're looking for the average is a representation of that range of numbers, so something like that. The marketing persona is an archetype, is a representation of all the people in that particular segment. And the second type of persona comes from, I don't want to call it software development. Let me call it product design, digital product design, because it doesn't always have to be software. It could be technology, it could be industrial design, it could be any type of product. So it's really, really product design, right? And in product designers have also found that their work is more effective, more optimized when they can imagine a real human being that will use the product rather than an abstract definition of a persona. So just similar to the marketing persona, the user-centered persona is also there. We're going to look at an example, something that I designed sometime last year and shared publicly on the internet. I'll share the link in the description. But before that, let's just look at what the expected attributes of a typical persona definition. So if you look at what they did here, like I said, right, this word Mary and the picture is just to evoke a certain sense of naturalness, right? It's supposed to make it really, really natural for the audience, for the person who's reading this document, to know that Mary, the persona Mary, is not a figment of imagination. It's actually anchored against a real human being. So this suggests to me that the person who designed this persona has anchored Mary to someone, maybe their office colleague, their sister-in-law, their, whatever it is, right? Whatever that is. Behaviors. Mary has a house cleaner. Mary buys takeaway 3 nights per week, frequently feels overwhelmed when she forgets something. In terms of demographics, Mary is a working mom. She's 34 years old. She lives in Reading, works in London. All these are in the UK. She's married with 2 kids, and she has a household income of 125K. I suppose that would be pounds, British pounds per year. What we've gotten from this is that the household income is not her personal income, it's the household income. So perhaps she earns 65 and, perhaps she earns 45 and the other spouse or other people in the family earn 80K. One way or the other, there's an aggregate sum of 125K in the family pool. So that's that. Needs and goals: help running errands. Mary needs help running errands, managing kids, and keeping things running. Remember that she feels overwhelmed. Okay, so she needs help with that. Mary needs time for her girlfriends. Mary feels like she has it. Mary needs to feel like she has it sorted. Mary feels like she needs to clone herself. So you can see the naturalness in the way that these things have been captured. This person has really, really tried to, as we did with Baba Moshood and design thinking and the downfall dilemma, this person has tried to immerse themselves in Mary's world so that they can write these kinds of natural sentence to clone herself. Obviously that sounds like a verbatim statement that was recorded here. So let's go to the example. This is a publicly available template for personas, and I strongly recommend that people use it. Like I said, I'll share the link in the description so that it's publicly available, and anybody can just go to the Google Drive location where it is, create a copy, and do as you will. All right, so I imagine this persona for a talent sourcing product that myself and a couple of friends were imagining. And if you look at it, I always say that when you're defining a persona, there's a mistake that I see a lot of founders make. Literally hundreds of founders usually make this mistake. Founders sometimes forget that demography is actually a means to an end and not an end in itself. So sometimes in their definition of a persona, founders define the demography, age 17, race, gender, income, occupation, education, marital status, family size, and they stop there, okay? But that is not optimal. I always say that you need to read in between the lines of what you have recorded as demographic attributes for that person, and try and summarize, try and extract, try and extrapolate what might be their psychographic attributes, right? Because ultimately, the job of a persona is to help you, the product designer or the product team, the full product team, to, as close as accurately possible, predicts how a customer might react or respond to your product, the way they will naturally do. So what you're doing with the persona is that you're trying to create an avatar, right? An avatar, some kind of persona for that person. And that persona will always be the way you will look at the product that you are designing when it comes to testing and other things like that. So demography is actually never enough. Psychography is the real object of persona definition, personas, and stopping at demography doesn't cut it, doesn't help you get that. So if you find that there's someone who's 17, so for instance, I always like to say, is there someone who is 17 and has these demographic attributes? Does this not sound like Gen Z, right? And then, depending on what you're defining, in this particular instance, this definition of the demographic attributes here looks pretty close to a Gen Z person, right? If that's the case, what are the psychographic attributes of a Gen Z person, right? And then you can record those things, as a representation of that particular persona. You have a problem statement here, which is like kind of what they were alluding to in the previous slide. But the problem statement helps you summarize what the goal or what it is that is going on in the persona's life, in this case, Adesua's life, that warrants her wanting to use your product. The goals section here are a short, concise, brief articulation of why they are using your product, what benefits will they enjoy from using your product. And then under marketing, I love this, right? Remember that we said one of the origins of the persona is marketing, right? So if you look here, right? If you look here, you see tone of voice. Let me just use tone of voice to explain everything under marketing, right? Look at tone of voice. It says relaxed. Let me bring out an example here. And I think pretty much everyone will agree with me. If you've ever used Microsoft Word versus Google Docs, then you've probably unconsciously experienced different tones of voice for different products that do different competing products, or well, maybe not competing, but different products that perform a similar function. Let me explain what I mean by that. If you've ever used Microsoft Word, you were typing something and then something happened, your computer, misbehaved, or something happened, and your work was abruptly interrupted. How does that happen? What's the experience like in Microsoft Word? You have this, your work is interrupted. You have this dialog box that appears. If you click outside the dialog box, nothing happens. You get this audio sound that is very alarming, alarming and not comforting. You then see inside that dialog box some kind of triangle with sometimes an exclamation mark, a real warning sign, and then you see, please note here, a message in an official sounding tone of voice, something to the tune of something that sounds like, "Dear user, you have encountered an error. Please contact system administrator. Error code is 5552227." Something like that. I mean, I know it's not exact, but it's something like that. And this is not to blame or to bash any product. The products are designed for different types of users, right? So Microsoft Word is designed for official sounding people, right? People in offices and enterprises, serious people, as I like to say. Compare and contrast that user experience with the experience when you run into an error when you're using Google Docs, okay? So Google Docs is also a word processor, albeit online, and you're typing something and an error occurs, maybe something happens at the server end, and you see this error page, right? The error screen. What does it look like? Sometimes it looks like a dinosaur. Your work is interrupted, yes. You can access your work, but you see a dinosaur on your screen looking like there's a game for you to play to pass it to while you wait the time. Then you see a message that says, oops, something like this, not verbatim, something like this. Oops, it seems an error has occurred. Don't worry, we got you. It's not you, it's us. Now, this is not to say that the Google message is better than Microsoft message, right? But what I'm saying is those two products, the language and the tone of voice are deliberately crafted to appeal to the psychography of the audience. The audience of Microsoft Word, of Google Docs, is not serious people. At the beginning, was not serious people, okay? Now they're starting to expand, so they're starting to creep into the other market, but the market was not serious people. So they built that product for the other people in the universe apart from the serious people, okay? So they knew that in order to appeal to those people, they're going to need to use informal language and very friendly, unofficial, unserious language. So that just explains everything. That's like a pointer into what you see there. So you see, tone of voice there is relaxed. There's another persona in this same product that was designed for the same product that has official for the tone of voice. Fashionista Japa, digital normal, language, call to action, online channels and offline channels, and so on and so forth. So all of these are the attributes of a persona. I hope that this has been a useful discussion. As I always say, thank you for tolerating my hallucinations. See you in the next one. Bye.